you're going to advance your career by being awesome at the stuff you love doing. And it is that sweet spot where you are insanely competent at one of these roles, and also that competence will help feed your passion for it.
Welcome to the Lara Jane Layton Show. This podcast is for you, the person who keeps putting others first. Your self-talk has held you back. You no longer need to take a second seat. Let's explore ways to overcome self-doubt. You can silence that inner bully voice and achieve your full potential. Here's your host, Lara Jane.
Welcome to the show, friend. I am so excited to have Mark, my new best friend, here with us today. He is going to talk to us about burnout, not just with you, but in your teams and everything, your family. When do we just get so tired of doing it all? And how do we offload some of that where we can survive, and not just survive, but thrive? How do we get to that point where our lives are just clicking? And so as leaders, we need to learn or let go of some of the things that we do, because once that's done, it's off your plate for good and you have someone else doing it. So how can we do this with things at work and all the other responsibilities that we have? Now, I wish I could send somebody to go do my exercising with me, for me, not with me, but haven't found that person yet. But before we get started, Mark, let's get a quick word from a sponsor. And when I come back, help me avoid that burnout. We'll be right back. Hey, since I rarely have openings in my coaching schedule, I have a new resource out there on my website. It is called the BFF Coaching Network. And I have offered a spot there for any coach that has been on the show to list their coaching. You can go out there, you can listen to their episodes, you can feel a little bit about them, and then choose a coach that will work for you. So LaraJaneLayton.com, the BFF Coaching Network. All right, Mark, the information about you is in the show notes. So help me learn to let go so that I don't burn out.
So it begins very simply. We all want to be a team player, right? That's like a good thing. I want to be a team player. I don't want to let people down in my life and my family at work. I got to be a team player. Here's the problem, is that most of the time when we talk about being a team player, usually what that means is I have to pitch in, I have to do everything, I have to be upbeat and happy and smiling at all times. I'm not allowed to just kind of retreat in myself and have a quiet moment and focus only on the things that I'm particularly good at. I'm supposed to do everything. And the reality is, and this is borne out over decades of research and thousands of executives studied and individuals, is that there are distinct roles that we play in our lives and at work. And being a team player is not do everything. Being a team player means understanding what these 5 distinct roles are, and then picking one that we excel at and where we're going to find some fulfillment. And then, as you said a few minutes ago, learning to let go of some of the other roles. Because if we do it all, and it's funny, if you look at any great team anywhere in the world, in a jazz band, for example, nobody asks the trumpeter to go sit at the piano on, the WNBA, for example. Nobody's asking Caitlin Clark, go stand underneath the basket and grab all the rebounds. No, she's the best shooter. That's not what she does. Everywhere you look in the world, in every kind of a group, people have distinct roles where they are allowed to play to their strengths. It seems to be only at work and in families where we say this one person gets stuck doing everything. And we got to basically say, okay, enough is enough. There are 5 roles. I can play 1, maybe 2 of those, but I got to let go and start to delegate. I know it's a weird word sometimes when we're talking about things at home, but that's exactly what it is. We have to delegate. And even if they're not going to do it as well as us, that's what we have to start to do.
And you teach those people to progress. You're doing them a service by helping them expand their life, not, I got to do it because you can't do it right. And I know a lot of people when I was working would just kind of take over everything or ask me to do things that, and I'm not saying not my job, but would take away from me doing my job. Like, I really need to focus on this. And as a project manager, I relied on everybody else doing the work. It was my saying when my kids would ask me what I do for a living, I'd say, I ask people what they need to do, and then I tell them to do it. So I had that hands off a lot of times, but not everybody has the opportunity, especially when what if your employee doesn't show up and now I have to do it all or I have to find someone else to cover for them? And there's that balance. How do I balance all that?
So it's a great question, and that's the rub, right? So let me back up 1 second. I talked about these 5 roles. Let me just quickly define what these 5 roles are, and then let's talk about which ones are easier to get rid of, right?
Yes.
So there's a director role. This is the person who makes the final hard decision. Listen, in every relationship, there will come a point where we've been debating something for 30, 40 minutes and somebody has to go, okay, enough is enough. We've debated this for 30 minutes. We're not getting any further. Here's where we're going. Boom, we're going left. That's it. Next. Okay, that's the director. The stabilizer. This is the kind of taskmaster. This is the person who keeps deadlines, keeps us on track, on schedule. If somebody is going to be looking at their watch on a regular basis, that's your stabilizer. They make sure the trains run on time, that the kids were wearing shoes when they walk out of the house. And, we pack clean underwear for the vacation and things like that. It's also the one to make sure our projects get delivered on time at the office. Then we have the harmonizer. The harmonizer is the emotional intelligence part of this. It's the role that says, listen, everybody's a little tense. I got to smooth things over. I got to bring people out of their shell. So and so's feeling a little off today. I got to reach out to them, emotionally connect. And so sometimes it feels like playing therapist. Sometimes it feels like I'm the cheerleader, whatever it is, but it's that emotional dimension. And then we've got the trailblazer. And the trailblazer is kind of the innovative, out of the box thinking. So at work, it's the person who comes up with that new idea. Hey, folks, we've been trying this for a while. Let's do something radically different. At home, it can take the form like, you know what? Every Sunday we do the same darn thing. Let's do something crazy different today. Let's all go-karting together. And like, well, okay, it's something nuts. And then you've got the achiever, and the achiever's like, listen, I just want to do some work. Just give me some direction. You give me direction. Just tell me what to do. I will just roll up my sleeves and get stuff done, but I don't want to be in charge of anybody. Now, you got these 5 roles. And unfortunately, when we think about a household, for example, women take on a disproportionate number of roles relative to anybody else in the household, right? So typically, the mom, the wife, the whoever will end up having to make some tough decisions. So they're the director, but then they've got to make sure everything is running on time and on track. So that's a stabilizer. But then they got to roll up their sleeves and actually get some stuff done, and okay, I got to go actually do the thing. But then when people are sad and hurt and frustrated and burned out, who do they turn to? Well, now we got to play the harmonizer role. So we're playing 4 of the roles. And then usually, dad gets to come in and go, hey, I got this crazy out of the box idea. Let's go, go-karting on the weekend. And now, yay, dad. And so they get to play the trailblazer. Well, okay, that sucks. And so now, because the other person has done now 4 out of the 5 roles, and the one role, which is, ostensibly the easiest if we're talking about at home. At work, it can be hard, but it's that, now they get to do just that one. So part of this is once you understand that these are distinct and separate roles, now the next challenge becomes number 1, assessing honestly with yourself, what is the role that I am best at? What is the role that I most enjoy playing? And what we find is that sometimes we end up stuck in a role that everybody else just stinks at. And it's not that we love the role, but we sometimes get, that role gets dumped on us, or it gets dumped on us because people around us have their particular biases. Anytime my wife and I go out to dinner, so my wife is a 5'2", 110-pound, petite clinical psychologist, very elegant, lovely woman. Um, we sit down, we order our drinks, but like before dinner, and the waiter brings them over, and he will brings over, sets the bourbon on the rocks in front of me, and sets the glass of Pinot Grigio in front of my wife. Now, my wife, little 5'2", all that, doesn't drink white wine. She drinks bourbon. I, let's say 200-ish pounds, whatever, facial hair, gray hair, thick dad bod. Um, I don't drink brown liquor. I drink light white wine. But because every waiter on earth pretty much has this bias in their head that, oh, well, it must be the woman is the one who drinks the light white wine and the man who drinks the bourbon. Well, no. So we get these biases that sometimes we'll say, and we see this at the workplace, for example, if you sit in a group of executives and you go, okay, well, who's the one who should be the harmonizer for the group? And we've done research on this. 6 or 7 out of 10 times, they're going to find the one female executive in the room and say, yeah, no, she's the harmonizer. She may just as likely be the best decision maker in the room, making the tough decisions. She may be the most innovative person in the room. So part of this is biases put on to us from outside, just people's prejudices. But part of it too is that we have to understand, what is the role I most want to play? What's the role out of those 5? What's the one I love to do that I'm the best at? That is my comparative advantage. I do this thing better than I do other things. And then start to say, no, somebody else is going to develop this particular set of skills. And one way I like to frame this is, if I talk about it in any relationship, I say, there are distinct roles. Going forward for the next month or two, you're going to take on the role of XYZ. You're going to be the stabilizer. Now, here's what that entails. That entails maintaining the deadlines, the time charts, the to-do lists, the due dates, the whatever the things are. You're going to take that on. Now, Laura Jane, as you pointed out, the first time you do that, inevitably, that person is going to screw it up. And one of the places where our friend is going to get into trouble is when she says, it will be faster if I just do it myself. Because the minute we do that, we are basically consigning ourselves to a lifetime of continuing to do it. So, but if I frame it not as, I'm sick of doing this, you need to pull your weight around here. If I do that, the people in my life, whether they're on my team at work or they're people in my house at home, they're going to get defensive. But if instead I say, listen, there are distinct roles that any group needs to function effectively. Here's the role I can best play. Now, what roles would you like to play in this? Or here's the role you're going to play for the time being, for the next month or two. We're going to try this out. And framing it like that now enables me to say, no, that one's not really inside my role. That's more of a stabilizer thing, or that's more of a harmonizer thing. You know what? You've got harmonizer this week. I'm not doing harmonizer. We start to withdraw. Now, again, not going to lie, it takes a little work and practice to get comfortable letting go and watching somebody play harmonizer not as well as you would do it, or not play stabilizer as well as you would do it. But as you noted earlier, when they start to build up that skill, guess what? They get better and better and better at it. And then all of a sudden, a few months down the road, we realize we have a far more robust team around us. I have somebody else in the house who can manage a calendar. I have somebody else in the house who can provide some empathy from time to time. Guess what? It's not just me anymore.
I really love what you're saying. It's like, I like to do those first 3. You have to learn to just allow other people to do it. And if it's not done right, in your opinion, because all of this is really your opinion. There's somebody else can do it just as good enough. Maybe not as good, but good enough to make it work. And sometimes if you don't rely on good enough, you're stuck. You're stuck doing it forever. And is that what you want? Yeah, maybe you want to make yourself well, unfireable. I couldn't even think of the other word, but so important. And when you do that, you're going to burn out. And that's the thing we're trying to avoid is by sharing the load, we start preventing that burnout. And for years, I tried to do it all. It's like, okay, I'll stay late and make up for what you didn't get done today. Okay, you know, because we cover their butts. What happens when we do that? They don't think they need to finish. And so by allowing them to fall on their face and helping them get up, by allowing them to trip and stumble, we build strength. We build people that can do it. And who wouldn't want to be on your team when they have all these opportunities to grow and learn? If you switch roles around the house like we used to do, like, here's your chart. This week you're on dishes. This week you're on this. We all have that thing that we get to experience. And by experiencing all the roles, you take an entry level person and you put them into middle management quicker because now they understand all the roles. But until you play them, it's harder to understand.
That is a huge, huge point, and it's funny. It ties into the example you gave earlier about teaching your kids to do dishes. If we think about what it takes really to be a great parent, well, one of the primary things it takes is preparing our kids to exist in the world. And this is going to sound morbid, but it is preparing our kids to exist and survive and thrive in the world after we're dead. That's it. I mean, it's like we have to.
I'm not waiting until then. It's after they leave the house. And
Yeah,
even
well,
in the house, they've got their roles.
exactly. But that's our job, right? Is to prepare them. And it's like, okay, watching your kid do the dishes. Well, we would not intervene. Like if we're teaching them how to ride a bike, like when I taught my kids how to, watching my daughter when she's 21 now, but watching her, ride at like whatever, age 3 or something, I'm not going to look at her and go, oh, well, I can ride a bike better than you. Here, you get off the bike. I'll go ride it. No, because my job is simply to get her to be a competent bike rider for the rest of her life. That's my job right there. And yet, when we like enter an office, for example, and we see somebody, messing things up a little bit, our first reaction is, well, let me step in and do it. But if we thought about it like, my job is to get you to where you can keep a project running on track yourself, because this is a skill you are desperately going to need. If you want to advance in your career, you are absolutely going to need to know how to do this. And if you can't do this, it will hold you back forever. Just like if you can't ride a bike, I mean, maybe that doesn't hold you back forever, but let's say you're really into biking. The kid has to learn how to ride a bike. The kid has to learn how to tie their own shoes. Well, every one of my employees and every person in my household has to learn how to do these various roles. They have to learn how to make a tough decision. They have to learn how to roll up their sleeves and do some work. They have to learn how to keep a project on track. They're going to need to learn how to deal with somebody who's in emotional pain, because ostensibly they're going to have a partner, some kind of romantic partner at some point in their life. They're going to have to learn how to negotiate difficult emotions. All of these skills are going to be absolutely necessary. And what's really funny is that when we look at, like in the workplace, for example, one of my studies took a look at high performers. And we found that in almost half of organizations, if you take like your best employees versus, they're not the worst employees, half the time, the best employees are less engaged, less happy in their jobs than the lowest performing employees. And people go, well, that's not supposed to be the case. It's not supposed to be the case. But think about it, like even for yourself, it's 5 o'clock on a Friday, some major project comes up. Somebody's going to have to work all weekend to pull this thing out, make sure it's perfect for Monday morning. who are you going to give that to? Your best person or your worst person? Well, I'm going to give it to the best person. Great. When it happens again next week and the week after that and the week after that, ask the question, who often has the worst job in any company? Is it the best people or the worst people? It's usually the best people. They're the ones sending emails at 11 o'clock at night. And so the interesting thing, though, is one major factor that helps offset that disengagement, aside from not making them do all five roles constantly, like, spread the wealth a little bit. The second thing is learning. When people feel like they are learning and growing and they are getting something out of this, well, now it feels like, you know what? Yeah, I don't love this part of my job, but I can see why this would be a necessary skill. And you can look at it and go, listen, there are things I don't love doing, whether it's in my job or even like, going for a run. Yeah, there are things I don't love doing. But you know what? If I do it, if I understand why and how this is going to benefit me and help me grow, well, now doing that thing, yeah, I don't want to play the stabilizer role for the rest of my life, but I know that being able to do it and step in from time to time when I need to give somebody else a break, or, whether my wife is going to crack because she doesn't want to do it, or one of my key executives is going to crack because they don't want to do it. All right. Yeah, I may need to step in a little bit. And if I don't have that skill, I got a big problem. But if I know that I developed that skill and now I can call on it when I need to from time to time. Okay. Now I go, all right, listen, I don't love it. I don't have to love it. I just have to get competent at it so that I can let it go when I don't need to play it and say no. But when I do need to play it, I've got enough skills such that I could step in and do it if I needed to do it. Okay. Now I'm positioned for much more success.
When you're talking, I'm thinking about that quote and I can't think of who it's from, but it goes something like train your employees so that they can leave, but
Mhm.
treat them so that they want to stay. And it sounds like everything you're talking about is employees love to learn. And as you teach them this, you do take the risk of them leaving. But by treating them genuinely and letting them be them authentic self, playing to their strengths, they don't get that very often. But how do you know what their strengths are until they've experienced them? And so there's so much value in what you're saying. It's like, now I'm getting the experience. And then, oh, John's really good at setting the schedule and he can go around and talk to all of the team members and make sure we're all set. It's your job now. Now he's loving that he has his part. And so now he feels important. And all those things build amazing teams and take the weight off your shoulders.
1,000%. And adding to that, you may even find that there's something you gave them that you were just trying to get off your plate. Maybe you didn't even have the best of intentions when you like delegated it away. You're just like, I cannot do this anymore. But it turns out that they love it. I remember one of my executives, I was struggling with a project. We were working on a research project. We had to re-architect the databases and all this. And I'm staring at it and I'm like, listen, I'm the CEO. This is the last thing I should be doing. And so finally I cracked and I said, I can't do this anymore. This is like a stabilizer role, 1,000%. I don't want to do it. I hate doing this. So I called Jill and I said, listen, I hate to ask, but I can't do this and I need somebody to do it. Would you take it on? She goes, yeah, absolutely. So she does it. Day later, she calls me and she goes, I love this. What do you mean you love this? It's horrible. This is like the worst thing we have to do in the company right at the moment. She goes, no, this is like therapeutic for me. It's like getting this organized. It's like, oh, this is like relaxing. And I'm like, are you messing with me right now? No, I legit love this. I'm like, all right, you know what? Listen, we've worked together a very long time, a decade. And I'm like, I did not know that. But simply by taking on this new role, and and again, I didn't do it with the purest of intentions. I did it because I was like fatigued and I'm like, I'm burned out. I can't do it anymore. But when she took it on, she's like, you know what? I love this. This is great. Okay, awesome. Because guess what? We got like five more of those we got to do. And it's just finding the opportunities where people try on those different roles. And as you say, they don't know until they get to test them out a bit. I promise you will inevitably discover that somebody in your life or on your team at work or in the house loves something that you don't love. We're not all the same. And even if my wife and I have been together for 36 years, and still there are things that we discover about each other, like, I really didn't like that part, but I really love this thing. And it's like, great, well, let's just divide that up. And the more you just keep playing and taking on roles and shedding roles and letting others take on different roles, all of a sudden you start to go, you know what? We have a far more robust team than I perhaps even gave us credit for, because I was so in the mode of I have to do everything, make the tough decisions, be the emotional soother, make sure everything is on time and on deadline, do the fun, crazy, out of the box stuff. I was doing so much of everything that I just didn't see that somebody else actually really liked one of those other pieces.
That is so funny because I am the person who just loved to tweak the spreadsheets and come up with all the data and just play with numbers. And it's like people go, I don't know how you like that, but it's fun. One time I hired a person just because I needed an assistant to do some stuff. Um, that probably a lot of years ago, I couldn't tell you how many, but he's now like manager over the software engineers and stuff. That one little tiny step showed him what he could become, the things that he thrived and loved. And you go, so many people don't get that opportunity, but you give them these opportunities and they find that thing they love and they advance in the corporation instead of stagnate in the corporation. And we, well, that was a lie. Not all of us want to advance. Many of us want to advance. And so if they do, they're going to love this. If they don't, you rock. You're going to have a solid employee doing that same thing forever. We all have our roles. And finding the role that fits you is tough, but so worth it.
hmm And that's really the key is I find when working with people on this model that, or when, people read the book and they call me and they go, well, what's the first step I need to take? Self-awareness. The first step is just literally ask yourself, what's the role where I excel? In economics, they talk about competitive advantage. And competitive advantage is when you are better at something than like everybody else in the market. Apple has a competitive advantage at making devices that look good. Okay, cool. But then there's another term, and it is comparative advantage. And it is what you do better than everything else you do. It has nothing to do with if I am a better stabilizer, the, to-dos and spreadsheets and Gantt charts and all that. If I'm better at that than I am anything else, doesn't matter how I stack up relative to the rest of the world. It just matters that I'm better at that than I am everything else I do. Then that's my comparative advantage. And so, really, step one is to just be honest with yourself about where is your comparative advantage? What is the thing you are better at than you are these other things of these 5 roles? And then, which one do you love to do? And then, if you really want to, ask yourself, what's a skill that I don't presently have that might be good for me to develop or that I would like to develop? If I know I am a great decision maker, I can make tough decisions. And when there's a crisis, great, I am the director. I can step in, make a quick decision, and no fuss, no muss, and we move forward. Awesome. But then I look and I go, okay, that's my comparative advantage. So that's where I want to do that. But what's a skill I'd like to develop? Well, maybe I'm not such a great harmonizer. Maybe when my kids or my employees are feeling a little bit down, maybe I'm not the best at connecting and being empathic. Okay, so I want to work on that one. And that might be a useful skill for me to have at some point in my life. So maybe I say, you know what? I know where my comparative advantage is. It's making those tough decisions. I'm great at that. But I got to take on a little bit of this other role because this is a skill that is going to help me later in my life. And whether it's with my kids, whether it's with friends, I may look and say, listen, how many famous CEOs have I seen get fired because they are utterly devoid of empathy? I don't want that to happen to me. And someday I aspire to be a CEO. Okay, well, maybe I should develop some of those harmonizer skills like now so that maybe I'm not going to be the world's best at it. That's okay. But I got to at least develop some level of competence at it so that, yeah, I can, I don't make some of the dumb mistakes that others have made that, derailed their careers. So it all really begins with that self awareness, that honesty, and saying, what am I best at? Second, what do I want to develop? And then third, which of these roles can I get rid of today? Like, which one could I start pushing off my plate? You don't have to get rid of the other four in the next 30 minutes, but what's one thing that I could start to get rid of that would not just free me up, but also give that person to whom I'm delegating or assigning this or participating with the opportunity to develop a skill that would be good for them in their life, that is going to help them grow their career or set them up for success in their relationships down the road, whatever it is. That's the question I have to start to look at and go, you know, if I have a teenager, for example, and I'm like, okay, well, they're going to be going off to college soon. And their stabilizer skills, like their deadlines, to dos, and all of that, their skills in that are zero. Okay. Well, you know what? When they're away from me, they're going to need some of those skills. We probably better start delegating some of that today, and not so much because I need it off my plate, although I do, but because I need to get them competent in that role, because that's going to be, for a kid going off to college, that's going to be one of the most essential roles they're going to have to learn to play. The crazy out of the box thinking, that'll take care of itself. Keep it on track and hitting deadlines and making to-do dates and, all that. Oh no, that's going to be the more essential skill for them as a life skill. So I better start delegating and developing them right away.
Yeah. Yes. And especially with our employees, because if you don't develop them, you're ruining your own ability to be productive. If you're always covering somebody else, you're not playing your role. And let go. It's like, I call it, what am I going to let in when I let go of this? And focusing on things I'm going to gain instead of the one thing I'm going to lose. I'm going to gain more time. I'm going to gain more of this. And because there's more positives out there than we focus on. And why not look? And I love the way you talked about that awareness. And how do I become aware? And for a while, when I wasn't really sure what made me tick, I'd come back from a meeting and go, okay, what did I like in this? What did I not? And I had a likes and dislike sheet that I would write stuff down on. And then as, I ended this meeting and I was at a 3 attitude-wise, or I came out of this one and I was a 5, I was starting to be able to identify those things through some self-reflection that I thrived on. And, I was able to present to the last several jobs that I got, during the interview process, "Hey, I know these are my weaknesses. I know these are my strengths, and I'm happy to be here as long as I'm having fun. When that stops, I'm done." Because having some fun is what made it worth being there for. And then I don't mean like having fun playing games all day or something, but where I could walk out of the job with the sense of that was a fun day. That was good. That was enlightening. I leave more empowered than I showed up. And you can do that. But when it starts draining, it's like, okay, time for a change. This isn't working for me. Things have changed. People have gotten complacent. They're not paying attention anymore. And you now have the power to do that. And isn't that so cool?
Absolutely. And I would just say, uh, building off of something you just said, that kind of end of day looking at, or, you get out of a meeting. There is literally an exercise that I recommend to people all the time, which is a self efficacy exercise. And it is at the end of the day, like typically before you leave the office or before you shut down the computer, is just take 3 to 5 minutes and just go, what's something that I did today that went really well? And what's something that didn't go as well? And what do I learn from the thing that went well? How could I do more of that tomorrow? And for the thing that didn't go as well, how could I fix that or stop doing it tomorrow? And if you just do that at the end of every day, just exactly like you did coming out of those meetings, self awareness, it like, boom, hits you in the head. It's like hard to avoid self awareness when you're doing a quick little self assessment. But the second thing is you start to discover that there are things that I do love and there are things that I am good at. And wow, if I could do more of those, man, I'd be happier. But also there are things I don't love doing. And if I could get rid of some of those, two things will happen. One, I get rid of them so I don't have to do things I don't love to do. But the second thing, and this is a point you hit on that's hugely important, is that it grows the others. Just like when I got rid of that assignment and gave it to Jill with the research database thing, um, it was not only did I get it off my plate and I hated it, but she got it on her plate and she loved it. It was a source of pleasure for her. It was a source of pain for me, but it was something where not only did she enjoy it, but then she took charge of it and took it to a level I wouldn't have even thought about because she got to add all new technological skills to her resume, to her plate, to portfolio, to learn new things. I mean, it just opened up a whole new world. And, it literally started because I'm like, I can't do this anymore. But she did it, took it, learned, grew, and just enjoyed it. So it's like, okay, if I get this off my plate, I like to, as you pointed out, I like to think of it as like giving somebody a gift. It's the opportunity to pick up a new skill. And is it always fun and joyful? No, not every skill acquisition is fun and joyful, but the benefits tend to last a really long time. And it is just immensely fulfilling. Going for a run every day is not always fun. Sometimes it's rainy and sometimes the weather stinks and sometimes you're hungover, whatever. Sometimes it ain't always fun, but it is ultimately fulfilling. And that tends to become far more important.
Fulfillment, that one thing that fills you up and doesn't drain you is, I call it, am I running on fuel or am I running on fumes? Have I exhausted myself? Am I done? What can I now feed me with to refuel? I sometimes say we could have a car and we could be going to work and go, I don't have time to stop for gas. I'm going to keep going. And you run out of gas, then you have to call AAA and they have to bring you gas and you're going to be late anyway. We do that to our bodies. We run out of gas. And if you can catch it and do all that self-reflection and that analyzing, you now know, if I'm pulling a trailer, I'm going to run out of gas faster. And so I'm going to need to refuel every 200 miles instead of every 300 miles. You now know that. We know it for our cars. Why do we not know it for ourselves? Because we don't have a gas gauge, but we do when you self-reflect and you pay attention.
Well, and one big litmus test that is an effective gas gauge is if when I tell somebody, hey, listen, you need to take that 5 minutes at the end of the day before you leave the office, and you need to just sit quietly by yourself for a minute, 5 minutes, and ask those two questions. What went really well today, for example? And if the person says, "Ugh, I just don't have time to do that." Okay, that's your gas gauge. Because if you can't take 5 minutes to pause and reflect, we got a problem here because 5 minutes is A, not the world's biggest ask. B, it tells you you're running on empty. And C, you can't grow it at all. If you can't take 5 minutes And listen, I'm not saying that you have to go to the extreme that, there are famous CEOs that will literally take a month off every year just to read and learn and reflect. Okay. Fine. Not everybody is going to be able to do what Bill Gates does and, take a month off and learn and read and reflect. And he, takes this month and he goes in with like 20 books and like, this is what I'm going to get through. Okay. We can't, not all of us can do that, right? That's unrealistic for a lot of us. But
But he built the team.
it,
Had
ex-
he not built the team and not found the people that could do every role, he couldn't do that.
and what is funny is that the current CEO, Satya Nadella, um, he described very famously their senior leadership team at Microsoft. He called them, he said, I like to think of them as a legion of superheroes. And they all bring different talents to the team, like different superpowers to the team. And it's exactly what we're talking about here. And to your point, even if you can't start with a month, you got to start with the 5 minutes. And then, you can expand that. And then maybe some point you get to could take the month. But whether you do or you don't is irrelevant. What is relevant is that you got to start with that 5 minutes. You got to start with that. What's one piece that I can put to somebody else, to give to somebody else where they can develop their skills and I can find 5 minutes to think and strategize and reflect on the day and think about my comparative advantage. Where do I really excel? What do I want to be working on, etc. We start there. But that has to be our minimum first step. And then, we get to down the road, yeah, we can expand that, get crazy with it. But take that 5 minutes and go, okay, which of these roles is really where I'm going to shine? The other thing, too, is that if you are somebody that is really focused on advancing your career, you're not going to advance your career based on the stuff you hate doing. You're going to advance your career by being awesome at the stuff you love doing. And it is that sweet spot where you are insanely competent at one of these roles, and also that competence will help feed your passion for it. Your passion for it will help feed your competence at it, but you're not going to get it by doing all five roles at a mediocre way. You're going to get that next advancement by excelling at one of these, maybe two, and then that's going to be the thing that will propel your career.
It sounds so easy. For me, I remember those moments of that self-reflection of how did I do? If I had that hard deadline and I couldn't do it, tomorrow wasn't a good day because it was yesterday and I don't remember everything that happened. So the sooner you can do it, the more you're going to be able to be accurate with your self-reflection. Not that you can't run out and go to the football game because your kid's playing and do it later. You're going to have those times. And if you've already done it 4 days out of the week, you're probably getting really close. So allow yourself that grace to do what you've got to do because we all have, not everybody, but most of us have very busy lives. And that's what kind of drives us. Like, I like lots to do. Fill my plate up so full that I don't finish it today. I'm excited to come back for tomorrow. Give me an empty plate. Why do I have to go to work? So, but we're different. And as you learn what your employees are, that even feeds them. I had a boss at one time that was like, for your review next year, I'm going to ask you what you learned, what you were able to do, what you accomplished. So I'd like you to at least weekly write down those things for that week because we're going to go over them. And he really wanted you to grow and expand to the point where he'd have you clean up your resume and make it accurate. And you go, you want my updated resume? Yes. Are you worth rehiring? Would I hire you now? And it was like, oh my gosh. And so that was his way of building his team is pay attention to what you do. Pay attention to your growth. If you end the year and go, yeah, I didn't grow, you're wrong. You grew. But so many of us are complacent that I'm just doing a good enough job. I'm just doing a good enough job that we don't remember all those moments of growth. And this self reflection that you're doing at the end of the day or weekly, I say more often is you're going to get more benefit,
Mhm.
but any time is better than no time because you're learning you. And you're not the same tomorrow as you were today. You had new experiences, new things that are going to help with your decision making, with your harmonizing, with all the different roles that you can play every day. You're doing something in those categories. So embrace it. Don't push it off like, yeah, I just did my job. No, you grew. You're not the person I hired. You're now better. And so love it.
Yeah, it's to your point. There's an exercise sometimes recommend to people, and it is even if you can only do it every week, every month, but go treat yourself to a coffee. Find your favorite coffee shop, or whatever you drink. But like make it a little special thing, and you go and you basically just take 30 minutes by yourself, like no kids, no spouses, not just you, and just take that time. And one of the questions, two big questions you have to ask yourself are what's something I'm better at now than I was last month or last week? And what's something I would like to get better at this next week or this next month? And it becomes a little personal strategic reset. And, to your point, some people love being busy, love having intense deadlines. Every time I write a new book, I purposefully choose deadlines that are tight. Because if you give me a year to work on a book, I promise you I will do nothing for 10 and a half months. And then it's going to get written in 6 to 8 weeks, anyways. And so I may as well just start out with a 2 month deadline and just call it good. But here's the thing, there is a big difference between being insanely busy towards a very specific goal that means the world to you and being insanely busy pulled in 100 different directions where you leave work at the end of the day. And if you asked yourself, did you get anything accomplished today? And you're like, we've all had those days where we leave the office and we're like, man, I sweated through my shirt today. Did I actually accomplish anything? And I've had days, just like we all have, where it's like I literally broke a sweat, like I need more deodorant. And yet, I go, did I actually accomplish anything today? Man, I don't know. Because I felt like I was pulled in 100 different directions, but I can be a similarly level of insane busy. And if I'm hitting the things I need to hit because I'm focused, I can still be busy. I can still get that adrenaline rush, that caffeinated buzz that I love so much, but I'm doing it in service of something that is going to benefit me.
And you're talking, it's like maybe today I spent and teed up 10 things. They're ready to go. You feel like you didn't do anything because it's not done. But just getting them ready, that paper shuffling, that time where you finally clean out that one desk drawer that's gotten all crazy. Those are progress. Those are clearing the clutter. Those are getting things ready so that you can run. That would be like not washing your clothes until the morning. And I washed my clothes, I folded them, I put them away, and I put them on, and I got to work. And we tee things up. That's progress. And so being able to look at your progress is so, so cool. And this is what we're talking about over and over again. In order to avoid burnout, looking at what you do, seeing that I'm making progress every day. And if you did backslide, like, one time I had um, one of my software analysts accidentally erased the whole darn computer, cleared the hard drive. So it didn't just put me back, it put the whole organization back while we back from backup, and then everybody got to do the day again. But what did that teach us? We now had a real life disaster recovery process. And how well did we recover? How fast did it take? Even though it set us back, it put us forward in other areas. So start looking at the benefit. When shit happens, we learn. Some of my worst moments are my best teachers. And you go, oh, I learned from this. So what did I gain? Even if it was just experience of treading water for 30 minutes to keep your head above it, that is value. You didn't drown. You stayed alive. And so looking at things as what did this do for me? Not just, was it good enough? Just what did it help? And let yourself feel that accomplishment, even on the paper shuffling days.
Absolutely. And that's, to your point about the toughest days, there's the old saying of battlefield promotions. It's the ones where everything has gone wrong, but, we reset, somebody stepped up, they become great opportunities if we're willing to take a step back and go, well, what am I better at now than I was last week? Well, I know how to do a data recovery plan. I learned, you know what? I'm better now than I was 2 months ago at dealing with a crisis. I kept my cool longer than I have previously. Okay, awesome. Great. What does that mean? It means I'm growing. And maybe I don't necessarily want to be crisis manager for the rest of my life, but I just developed in a way that I hadn't previously. And that is a huge thing. And you can look at that and go, you know what? Yeah, I did handle it. And that's the kind of stuff that, people will make up nonsense to put on their resumes. Well, I got something real to put on my resume now. I actually have a thing. Like, this isn't just words on a paper. I can back this stuff up with specifics. And that's powerful.
I didn't just put together a plan. The plan worked. Mark, this has been a lot of fun and I think extremely valuable. Finding joy and success in the bad times is going to help prevent burnout too. Not just offloading stuff, but looking at what you gained. So I really think this has been a fun conversation. I could keep talking to you forever, but let's kind of wrap up, do a quick summary of those roles and what happened, and then tell us if our friend wanted to get a hold of you, how would they do that? And then what's that one thing they could do right now that could help them move forward?
So let me take the first and the last questions together. The 5 roles. There's the director, that's at making those tough decisions. There's the trailblazer, that's at out of the box crazy ideas. There's the stabilizer, that's your Gantt charts, to-do list, deadlines, all that. There's the achiever, that's the just give me an assignment, let me roll up my sleeves and do the work. And then there's the harmonizer, and that's the emotional, smoothing over the ruffled feathers. Now, as for the one thing we can do today is number 1, be honest and sit down and ask yourself, which of these 5 roles is my comparative advantage? Which of these 5 roles do I do better than the other roles? Everybody has strengths. And so what is my superpower? When I'm in a group, when I'm on a team, what is my superpower relative to all the other things I do? What's the one I do the best? And if you're stuck, ask the question, what would other people say is of these 5 roles? What would other people say is the one that I'm best at? Because sometimes when you get stuck in your own head and you haven't done the reflection yet, just putting yourself in somebody else's head, it's called meta perception, and people are weirdly accurate when when they're asked to think about what would others say about you. They're shockingly good at it. And so just do that. What would others say is my superpower of these 5 roles? And that's the fastest, easiest place to start with this. And if you want to dive into this stuff more, you can always check me out at leadershipiq.com. That's my company. And you can check out my book, Team Players, the 5 critical roles you need to build a winning team, and that's available anywhere books are sold, ebook, hardcover, audiobook, whatever.
I love it. Thank you so much, Mark. This has been a lot of fun. Friend, Mark and I are not medical or mental licensed professionals. We're here for entertainment. People that have found a path that works for us and would like to help shine a light on your path to help you get to your goals in a smooth, amazing way. So thank you for joining and stay tuned for the next episode.
Are you tired of waking up exhausted? You are not alone. If you're looking to take your life back, let's start with the simple step of adjusting your self-talk. Stay tuned for the next episode with your host, Lara Jane. Remember to follow the show so you don't miss the next simple step that you can use to feel more confident. And please leave an honest review.